You're listening to the Get.Out.N.Drive.Podcast with John, CustomCarNerd Meyer, and Jason, Old Car Guy Carr. We'll be bringing you gearheads everything you never wanted to know about cars and why they should be on the road and not in your garage. Are you ready to get out and drive?
So welcome back to another great episode. I know it's been a while, a little bit of a hiatus, but we've got our crap together and we're ready to start talking some NASCAR on this episode. John, welcome to the podcast.
I love NASCAR, so it seems like I'm in the right spot.
Yep. Well, I think we're in the right spot. Before we get going, my name is Jason, Old Car Guy Carr.
I am John, CustomCarNerd Meyer.
And today we are talking NASCAR. There seems to be an awful lot going on in the NASCAR world, and I think it's worthy of a little bit of an episode to get this out there and get some thoughts and some interest in what people are thinking. And we want to start right out of the gate with the boxing match that broke out at the All-Star Race a couple of
There
weeks.
was almost a hockey game.
Right?
There was so much fighting.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just two people fighting. It started that way. But it ended up where on lap 2 of the All-Star Race, Kyle Busch and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. get into each other, leading to Ricky Stenhouse getting wrecked on lap 2. It was just, to me, I was watching the race, and to me, it was just a racing thing. Rubbin
is racing.
Kyle Busch got into him a little bit, and when they come back around for the next go at it, they just crossed paths a little too close. Ricky Stenhouse got up into the wall, at which point he proceeded to go to the pit box of Kyle Busch, where his crew chief was, and tell them that he would be waiting at their hauler at the end of the race. And that's exactly what happened. When everything was all said and done, Kyle Busch goes back to his hauler, and there's Ricky Stenhouse getting ready to have a little chat.
He was in his fancy beach attire. I saw that.
The shorts alone was worth the admission.
Yes.
So they tried to talk it out, and I think Kyle Busch, and a lot of the announcers during this time were saying that Kyle Busch was pretty much prepared to admit that he messed up. He never got that far. The fist started flying, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. ended up with a $75,000 suspension and ordered immediately to burn those shorts. No, I don't know about the shorts, but
right. That was my vote. That's just my vote. That's how I find him.
So, John, in a case like that, I can go back probably 10, 15 years in NASCAR when the rules of the higher-ups in NASCAR was have at her, boys. Meaning they wanted to see the rivalries. They wanted to see a little bit of rubbing on the track. They wanted to see a little bit of in-your-face, good cop versus bad cop, or whatever you want to call it. And
WWE on wheels.
Exactly. That's one thing they don't want. They don't want them using these cars as weapons. Mm-hmm. But you're in the pits, you're heated, you're racing for $1 million bonus, and you get wrecked on lap 2. Regardless of whose fault it was, you got wrecked. And despite what was going on, is fighting the answer? Is that what the fans want to see? Is that what NASCAR was hoping to accomplish when they said boys have at her?
My unpopular opinion is, in the past many, many years, NASCAR seats are getting more and more and more empty. My opinion, it has to do with safety. It has to do with everybody has the same car, same everything, same. Everything's changed as the driver and the driving style, or if you blow a tire, or how quickly you change a tire, how quickly you refuel. There's not a whole lot of variables other than maybe temperature, day of race. And there's only so much people can watch of that. And I'm not conspiracy theorist, but I sure want to throw in the fact that they're telling these guys to have at it because that fills the seats. That gets good guy against bad guy. That gets the old rivalries against the new rivalries, vice versa, whatever. That gets people buying merchandise. That gets people online. That gets people talking. It's bad for the sport to see somebody jump on each other in another pit, but that's WWE. That's this guy isn't supposed to win. That guy isn't supposed to win. Oh man, Bigfoot crashed. Guess who won again? Gravedigger. That kind of thing. That's my opinion. Is I believe it's kind of sort of a little bit contrived. What say you?
Well, what I say is that Ricky Stenhouse Jr. got fined $75,000 for unsportsmanlike conduct. But what did they do? The whole following week was the news clip.
Yep.
That was the punch. And NASCAR blared that. Like, it was all over the place. And so, yes, they're saying unsportsmanlike conduct, but look what might happen at a race when things get heated. Maybe you should watch the next one. Maybe you should buy a ticket to the next one. Maybe you should go online and watch the next one.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one thing to sit there and say that Ricky Stenhouse Jr. was in the wrong for throwing that punch. Yes, he got fined. But NASCAR, don't think for a second NASCAR as an entity is not going to exploit the crap out of that to put asses in those seats for the next race. And
any publicity is good publicity.
Absolutely. If they're talking about me or they're talking about the sport, that's good. Every time somebody says the word NASCAR, dollar signs are flying in somebody's eyes.
Well, sure. That's why I said, contrived or not, or somebody said, what if this were to happen?
Yeah.
Well, let's see. And there are very few Dale Earnhardt style go out there and win at any cost, finish on the roof backwards, Ricky Bobby type of racers. Oh, I'm on fire. But there's not those racers aren't there anymore because rules, regulations, safety equipment, 100 other reasons are sponsors, how the sponsors look in what light they look. You walk a fine line as a sponsor of, do you want to be a sponsor of the bad guy, quote unquote bad guy? Do you want to be the sponsor of the good guy?
That's right. The bad guy gets talked about, and every time the bad guy gets talked about, they're showing his car with that sponsor's name on it.
Right.
Seeing how we are on a little bit of maybe an unpopular topic, whether we're for or against this fighting, I think the whole idea of you talked about, there's nobody that's been the current version of Dale Earnhardt Sr. Here's the unpopular part. I truly believe, as much as I dislike Kyle Busch, I believe that Kyle Busch is about as close as we're getting to the intimidating driving style, the win at no cost, the I'm going to wreck you if I can, to move ahead. And the fact that this kid, I say kid, he's not much younger than we are, wins in everything he gets in.
Oh yeah, he's got the Midas touch, man.
He wins in the trucks, he wins in the Xfinity, he wins in the Cup cars, and when he goes out wherever he's going, whatever he's sitting in, he wins. So I'm not necessarily comparing him as the equal to Dale Sr. I'm saying he's the current version, in my opinion, of what we see today in NASCAR. So
yeah, within these rules and within this atmosphere of today's NASCAR, it's difficult to be aggressive and not get in trouble.
Yep. And you know what? I say, boys, have at her.
Right.
If that's what it takes to get NASCAR. I stepped away from NASCAR. I quit watching NASCAR a few years back when Jeff Gordon retired. I watched for a year or two after that, and Jeff Gordon was my driver for years, right from the 90s when he first started on through to his retirement. And at the beginning, I said, you know what? I've got all this 24 merchandise. that I'm going to continue wearing. So I'm going to follow Chase Elliott. And then what does Chase Elliott do? Changes his number to number 9. His old man. But I just kind of got away from it for a while. And now that I'm back, I've bought the subscription. I'm watching every race every Sunday, and I'm getting back into seeing who these new up-and-comers are. And one of the names that jumps up as an up-and-comer who's been around probably since I walked away from it is Kyle Larson. And Kyle Larson has been in the news over this last week because he tried to do the doubleheader, the Indianapolis 500 and the Coke 600, all in one day. If it hadn't been for rain, he'd have done it. And my guess is he likely had the car to make it happen. So, John, what had happened was the Indy 500 got rain delayed, and the start of the race pushed ahead or pushed back so that they raced later in the day. That didn't jive with the schedule for the Coke 600. So they had to have a relief driver start the race for him in the number 5 car at the Coke 600. He did not start that race. The rules in NASCAR say in order to qualify for the cup, in order to qualify for a championship, to get into that, you have to start every race. Now, there is a caveat. You can get a waiver, and the waiver may allow him, based on unforeseen circumstances, may allow him in. But should he go forward and race in the chase and win the championship, was it a real championship? This is where some of the controversy lies right now. John, what do you think? If the rules say you've got to be there, what circumstances constitute a waiver approval?
If it is weather related, I believe it's going to be out of your hands. If you have some issue that's completely your fault, I believe that you should not be allowed to race. That's 100% my opinion about. I can't control the weather, and neither can NASCAR. If the race was completely rained out, nobody could have started the race. How would they deal with it then?
Yeah, and one of the things that was out of that leads me to talk about this a little bit is when Kyle Busch broke both of his legs in a crash that happened at one point during the season, and he was out for several races, but yet the waiver allowed him to heal, to get back in the car. Because he had won a race, they allowed him to qualify for the Cup championship. I agree with that. I do. However, had Kyle Busch been off gallivanting and racing in a different series and received an injury, I would probably say no, I wouldn't grant that waiver. But in this particular case, had everything gone to plan, Kyle Larson would have raced the Indy 500. He'd have had time to fly to Charlotte, race in the Coke 600, start the race, finish the race. Like I said before, he's a winning driver. Could quite possibly have won that race. But we'll never know. So I guess the idea is, if everything had fallen into place, he'd have been able to race that. He would have been able to qualify. The weather did not work in his favor.
Thanks, tornadoes and rain.
On the topic of the Coke 600, 600 miles. The longest race on the NASCAR schedule, 400 laps at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Christopher Bell was leading when the caution flag came out, and then the red flag for rain. It was well into the early morning when they realized they weren't going to be able to get the track dry with the jet dryers, all their efforts, and have the drivers get back into the car in the wee hours of the morning and finish this race. They called it. It was halfway or better. That constitutes an official race. Christopher Bell now, well, I think he did before anyways. He won, was given that win. Now he is able to race for the championship as well.
Every time you're saying what you're saying, all I could think of is somebody pulling in the clown car, and Ricky Bobby gets to race because he's busy getting a lemonade. The driver's busy getting a lemonade and a chicken sandwich.
Yeah, right.
That's all I can. That's all
we
I can
need someone
think of.
Who can race this car. Who wants to go fast?
Exactly.
I
think we're wasting time. Yeah, that's fantastic. But yeah, as you're saying that, replacement driver, that's all I can think of. So if I'm in a daze somewhere, it's because that's what's playing in my head.
Yeah. Other news that I think is probably some of the biggest news in modern NASCAR times is the fact that Tony Stewart, NASCAR Cup Series champion and team owner Tony Stewart,
And Leah Pruitt's husband.
Leah Pruitt's husband. Uh, it's an inside joke. If you know, you know. Um, has decided that it's time to exit NASCAR, and he's going to focus his um, efforts on his NHRA team and try and build that up over there. NASCAR is an expensive sport. There are high demands. It's a 365-day a year business and organization. Just because they're not racing doesn't mean they're not working. Stewart-Haas holds 4 charters. If you guys don't know what charters mean, it means you have to pay money to own a team to be able to compete in NASCAR's top series. They own 4. If they're getting done at the end of the season, that means 4 teams somewhere out there in the atmosphere can grab a hold of one of those charters, or 2 of them, or all of them, or however they're going to do it, and make their competition efforts greater. And the one name that comes to mind in that is Dale Jr. Dale Earnhardt Jr. has been talking about racing a car or a team in the Cup Series for the last several years, and was trying to figure out whether it was worth it. And I think that this might be an opportunity for that to happen. Wouldn't it be great to see the Earnhardt name on a team back in the Cup Series, John?
I would love it. It would be a chance to weave some nostalgia into current NASCAR times. Whether or not they would choose to do that through colors or vintage looking sponsors or anything of the sort, silver and black and red and all sorts of things. I think it would be fabulous.
And to tie into that headline with Tony Stewart and Stewart-Haas being out, 4 charters being up for grabs, and the thoughts of possibly Dale Jr. and Junior Motorsports coming to the Cup side, how awesome would it be for that number 8 to be back on the track, the original font,
Mm-hmm.
that sideways leaning number 8 that Dale Jr. started with his father at DEI. And the reason why I wanted to bring that up was simply because of the copyright on that number 8 is owned currently by Teresa Earnhardt, or Dale Earnhardt Incorporated. And for years, she just held on to it. She would not let it go. And now it seems as though it may happen that Dale Jr. will apply for the copyright on that number 8. And again, how awesome would it be to see the number 8 in the Cup Series, owned by Dale Jr. or Junior Motorsports,
Mm-hmm.
and having a big name come up behind that to race? How awesome would it be to see Dale Jr. behind the wheel again?
Do your sources say anything about him actually being behind the wheel or only managing a team?
Well, he would be the team owner. And I think at this point in time, because he owns, I believe it's 4 teams or 4 cars in the Xfinity series, he doesn't race over there. He's got drivers over there. So my guess is that somebody from over there on the Xfinity side would likely come in and move up into the Cup Series if they were ready. Honestly, Dale Jr. is my age, in his late 40s. I can't imagine him at this point getting back into a car at that age, because it seems as though once you hit 40 and above, you're somewhat a nobody in the sport again. But you've got Denny Hamlin, Kyle Busch, You got some of those guys who are in their 40s continuing to compete and win races. So don't count them out yet. Don't count Dale Jr. out. I don't think that for 1 second he doesn't have that opportunity or wouldn't make that opportunity for himself. But you never know. It could be something that could happen either way. I think if everything all comes together, it would be great to see the number 8 in the Cup Series again.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's despite what other people say that auto racing is not a strenuous sport, they are completely wrong. I mean, it takes everything out of you.
Yeah, and we've had we've had some NASCAR drivers that we've talked to here on the Get.Out.N.Drive podcast. We've had some of the inside from the NASCAR teams, AJ Ware, who come over here from Petty GMS Racing, which is now Legacy Motor Corporation, co-owned by the great Jimmy Johnson, as well as I think Richard Petty still has some dabblings in there a little bit. So it's always great to get some of that inside information from NASCAR. John, anything that you want to add to that?
Not really. I hope that NASCAR gets to a point where they get butts in the seats, because social media has made it to where you almost don't need to go to a race unless you want to feel the race. Everybody can get the same passion, the same mental backing, and hurrah for their driver and the whole bit and everything through video, through social media. People watch the races live, all that thing. Not a lot of people get the opportunity to go to all the tracks and watch their favorite driver win. So I think anything that NASCAR can do, if it is to let their guys rub a little more and get a little heated, I think it'll help.
Yeah, and of course, you guys are right down the road from what used to be Gateway International. What is it called now?
Yep, Worldwide Technologies Raceway.
And my closest racetrack to where I am was Loudon, New Hampshire, and we would go every fall to the fall race. We would pack up the camper, we would drive down, we'd make a great weekend out of it. And there's nothing like the smells, the sounds, and the feel of those NASCARs and trucks when they're riding by you at 130, 140 miles an hour. Or in some cases more when they're at the bigger tracks. But it's definitely an experience, and I think NASCAR has done something right with this latest generation of NASCAR. If you're making all the cars the same, the biggest difference is going to be in your strategy and that guy behind the wheel. Who's able to run the wheels off and take chances and do exactly what it is that they do in NASCAR, and not just at the top series, at all levels of NASCAR. You've got to start low and work your way up. And it's fun to see that NASCAR is willing to make changes throughout the seasons and to move with what people want to see. And, if you happen to see a swinging fist or a knuckle sandwich in the pits, well, guess what? If that's what it takes to get some seats in. John, this was great being able to talk a little NASCAR with you and share some of the news that's coming out right now. And I think that, as time rolls on, maybe this is something we can come back to and see update on some of these stories. What do you think?
I can't wait. I'm going to watch every single race and see if there's a pass in the grass.
There was one last week.
Really?
Yeah. You missed it.
I did not see it. I was busy, but no. More pass in the grass. That kind of stuff makes the world go round.
Yeah, and if it wasn't for the 1979 Daytona 500 race, where I forget the names of the drivers, but I think Bobby Allison was one of them, and maybe David Pearson. There were two guys. The race, they wrecked each other coming around the final lap, and they're on the backstretch duking it out. And it was the first race to be broadcast on TV, and I think that's what drew a lot of people in. So maybe that's what they're trying to get back to. I don't know. At the end of the day, we're excited to see where NASCAR goes in the future, and hope to be able to talk to you guys a little bit more about it. Let's see where this goes. So I hope you enjoyed this style of podcasts. Make sure you let us know if you like it. And if you have any suggestions on what you want us to talk about, make sure you head on over to GetOutNDrive.com. Scroll all the way to the very bottom. There's a listener hotline. Tell us what you're looking for. Tell us what you want to hear, and we'll do our best to fill you full of crap, just like I did with this episode. We'll keep it moving. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll talk to you in the next one.
Cruise on over to our website, Get.Out.N.Drive.com, for all the info you never wanted to know about our podcast. Hit us up on our listener hotline. Be the first to know what's happening, get industry news, and grab your Get Out and Drive merch. Connect with us on social media. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Follow us on Twitter at GetOutNDrive.Pod.
What drives you?